the TeachPitch podcast. We are very excited to be launching a series of interviews for TeachPitch, a global community of 50,000 subscribers from over 205 countries to date. And for these interviews, we have selected a number of subscribers who have achieved great things. And by great, I mean amazing. Think of former presidents, entrepreneurs, people who've built hospitals, huge non-profit organizations, successful journalists, doctors, etc. And what all our guests have in common is that despite their great success, they've encountered many enormous challenges. So what were these challenges and how did they overcome them? That's what we're going to be talking about here. My name is Aldo de Pap and I'm massively looking forward and very grateful you can join us on this journey. So sit back, relax and download the podcast here.
I aim to study sociology, psychology, or geography. I was not a businessman, but my father's health deteriorated so fast. Yeah, we have free will. I could have said no, but there was not a hair in me that thought that I could say no. So I did it. And after 1 year, I was so sucked in.
Fred Matser discusses how he was challenged by being asked at a young age by his dying father to lead the family business, a thriving commercial project development company turning over millions. This led him to make a choice that was right for the family, but not for him. We also speak about how he managed to get out of it, making the radical, deeply spiritual decision to devote his life to helping others. And lastly, we speak about the challenge of sharing his philosophy and vision at the age of 75. Enjoy this interview with Fred Matser. A very good day to everyone. Thank you so much for joining us again for this podcast of TeachPitch. And in this episode, I'm very, very excited to have with me the great Fred Matser. Fred has made it his life's work to help. Over the past 40 years, he has been involved in helping people grow their projects, organizations, initiatives, and social impact companies to change this world for the better. Healthcare, education, environment, climate change, peace building, there is no subject that Fred and his organization, the Fred Foundation, have not touched. And the list of those he has supported throughout the years is endless. Mentioning all of their names, Red Cross, Goodall Institute, Malaria No More, the Chopra Foundation, Green Cross, and hundreds more would take us a podcast in and of itself to go through. So we won't do that. What I find more fascinating is how Fred helps. Because when you take a closer look at all the beautiful things that have come into existence because of Fred Matser, I see one thing clearly come to the forefront: personal ignition. Fred's support, financial, advisory, and operational allows great social entrepreneurs not only to start building on their ideas, but also ensures that they will thrive and become sustainable. The Fred Foundation does not only look at the ideas, but also clearly at the person who has them and how he or she should be assisted to thrive. Understanding the person is core to Fred's approach and philosophy. Even though you will always discover elements of Fred's business background, running one of the biggest commercial real estate development companies in the Netherlands, he will make it a priority to genuinely get to know the person. It is almost like that through helping, Fred is on a quest to understand us human beings in the most profound sense of the word. And I'm so happy that after 40 years of practical research, he has now made it a priority to share many of his observations to ensure that any support, assistance, or aid will have genuine, long-lasting effects. Let's try to compare with care in order to share with care, he says in the beautifully made documentary Beyond Me that was launched just last May. I have the great privilege of knowing Fred already for more than a decade, and have to say that engaging and debating with him is an exceptional experience and a beautiful journey. Many have praised Fred, but I think the former Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev said it the best and the simplest when saying that Fred is a man with a big and open heart. He's making the world better. Fred, a very warm welcome to you.
Well, thank you for an overwhelming warm bath. Thank you very much, Aldo.
Well, very much deserved, Fred, very much deserved. I've highly enjoyed watching your documentary. I mean, I've known you for more than a decade now, so I know a little bit, of course, about the many great workings of the Fred Foundation and so many other initiatives, of course, you have been involved in. And I thought that this documentary really, represented what is important to you, but also summarizes many of the human experiences that you have had. And again, I will recommend it multiple times, but I think it's very much something that people should go out and see, specifically because it's also available through its website for free for everyone to view. So yeah, I'm very happy you're here and very happy that we can talk about your nearly 40 years journey of helping people, because I think that's quite an achievement, and I don't think there are many other people who could say the same. So yeah, the first question is basically, Fred, I would like to talk, of course, to you about that journey, because it has been quite a journey that you've undergone, and kind of, bringing you back to the very beginning. And just to remind the viewers, what we do is, this specific podcast is intended to basically talk to people about challenges that they've encountered and what they did to overcome these challenges, to realize their dreams and projects and hopes and whatever it is. And Fred, you've been so great to give me 3 challenges. And the first challenges you described, taking us back to the very beginning, is how you describe it yourself, is when I was 18, my father became ill and asked me to take over the family business. I knew that would make me very unhappy, but I felt a sense of responsibility and wanted to help my father and make him proud. So that was your first challenge, which of course I can imagine is tremendous, because of course your father, it's your everything.
Yeah. Thank you, Aldo. And first of all, I want to express my gratitude for having me in this podcast. And my understanding is that many of the people that listen to this podcast are people that work as teachers. And I think in a way, the teachers for me are kind of heroes. They have a very responsible task to guide young people to their next stage in life by sharing information with them in such a way that what they try to teach, that it will be welcomed on the other side. And I think having had children, having been myself a child, that can be quite a challenge. Yes, my father, he had diabetes and Parkinson in quite a developed stage back in 1964. And to my big surprise, he invited me to be his successor, which was, as I said, surprised because my younger brother was the aimed successor. He was the businessman in the family. But my father said, my health deteriorates so fast that I cannot wait. So, yeah, we have free will. I could have said no, but there was not a hair in me that thought that I could say no. So I did it, and I've learned a lot there. And it was straight after my school. I did not do any university study at the time. And within a few weeks, I sat unannounced in my father's boardroom, and he was seen as a genius. He had a very, very high IQ. He was a person with a lot of modesty. He was not trying to be the big man. He loved the process. He was not aimed at getting richer, so he supported several important projects in developing countries. For example, in India, he organized in Bihar, where in the early 70s there were huge droughts, a Caterpillar drilling machine to drill wells. And so he was a man that loved the game and had a great heart.
So, when describing the challenge, and of course I think everyone being in such a position would find it hard to kind of say no to such an offer. But how did you know that it would make you unhappy? at 18?
Well, because I aim to study sociology, psychology, or geography. I was not a businessman. It was just I want to help my father. And also what I said to him, I will engage myself for the max of 1 year, and then I want to review anyway. So I tried, but after 1 year, I was so sucked in. Everybody accepted me. I was nearly 20, and my father everywhere announced me as his successor. But what gave me self-confidence at the time was that I always asked when somebody explained to me when I did not understand, and that was quite often. And to my surprise, many people were not able to explain what they were saying. And that gave me a lot of confidence. So through questioning, it came further and further, which gave me, a stronger feeling about myself. So I've done that from 1964 to roughly 1982, 83. My father passed away in 77. Yes, we all, the 3 children, we got a big inheritance of millions. And in a way, I was also financially free. Then in a way, I went to sit on the top of a mountain to look at me, to take more distance, look at the village where I was running around. And I wanted to see if I want to continue that. And then I decided, no, I'm not going to do this. It is better for me to work in where people really need me, need my talents. And so it was that I found a way to be connected with Red Cross and Red Crescent societies in Geneva. I met the Secretary General, and within an hour, he asked me to come and work. He said, in a few months, I will launch a worldwide program that is aimed to reduce child mortality and morbidity related to the dehydration that goes with diarrhea. 5 million children at that stage died related to that cause. And there's a simple intervention, oral rehydration salts, a combination of salt, water, and sugar that you can give to a child, which is 90% effective. And I was stunned when I heard about it, because how can we not know about this? This happens over there. It was not part of the Western world. And I really was flabbergasted how we could not care. And so I got a privilege as a volunteer to lead that program for 3 years. And you in the beginning, in the introduction, you said something about helping. And there was a big lesson that I learned. And that is the following. From Red Cross headquarters in Geneva, many people that worked there rushed into very vulnerable areas where people were suffering, often white faces. And the attitude was, well, we come and help you. And then I realized that, of course, we went also into other countries advising the National Red Cross, National Red Crescent societies about how to approach the diarrhea problem. And I realized that if I want to help people and I am stressed, which all those people were, including me, then I harm an already vulnerable society. So what I'm doing then is in a way export my own stress. So I thought, if I want to be efficient, if I want to connect hearts with hearts, I need to de-stress myself and help first myself to become more in balance. Otherwise, all the lessons that I have not yet learned or corrected in myself, I risk that I pollute other people with.
Wow.
And that's what a big lesson where I saw, if I want to transfer, and this relates to teachers, of course, if I want to transfer information, I have to be on level with the other. Not better, just different. And I first built a bridge of trust. Then I can try to relay information, not to try to convince any person, but in such a way that the other person can be convinced. We do not want to be told what we have to do, but we get inspired when we have access as a listener to information that is presented in an interesting way so that it really makes an impression.
Yeah. And so I just want to go, sorry, Fred, because I think it's most interesting. I just want to go back to that moment whereby you weren't happy in that corporate setting. You describe in your documentary as well that you were successful for, the standards of many people, just not for your own.
Yeah.
And you just described it as you were on the mountain in that specific, you were reflecting.
Yes.
How did you know that going to partner with an organization like the Red Cross was going to be kind of a better thing for you? Or was it more like a hunch? Did it come later? It's like, because it's quite another route, right? So it's kind of, there's one thing of being in business in real estate, and you could also say, well, it's the wrong business. But no, you said, no, it needs to be, I'm going to go with the Red Cross in Geneva. So how did you know that was more your path rather than, something else, politics or academia or whatever more?
Yeah, well, there's not such a thing in this case as knowing for me, but it was more, I have done the real estate. I know all the tricks. And if I would leave this position as chair of the company, thousands of other people want to be in that chair. So, I'm not so necessary. I'm not needed here. Mm-hmm. And what I said, the world is on fire. And on the other side, I have to be honest, I owe a keen interest in the Alps, in the mountains, and in Switzerland. So that was a private interest as well. So that went hand in hand. Yeah.
So there was a literal mountain there. So that's also.
Yeah, there was also the literal mountain.
Yeah.
Not Geneva exactly, but very near to Geneva.
Yeah. And it was there as well that you had what you call a transcendental experience. That's where.
Yes, indeed, the people that are listening now may not know about it, but indeed in 1985, a friend of mine had a treatment by what was not that well known at the time, a healer, an American healer, and he treated him with a minusculous portion of nutmeg combined with drinking of 2 liters of water and a lot of fresh vegetables. And that's what he advised me to do too, which I did. Apart from that, I got a very hot bath and a profound massage. And when that happened, the massage in the room where this took place, the song We Are the World from Stevie Wonder and others was coming from the loudspeakers. And at that stage, that music resonated in me at such a profound level that in a way I felt I was informed beyond my rational mind. So it was the thinking went down. I allowed myself to be thought. I allowed myself to be felt instead of that I felt. I started to be very interested how information, everything that expresses itself in form, to me is information which goes from very subtle fields to the most dense field in the whole universe. How do we connect with our consciousness with information? Does that run through the ratio? Or is ratio the block on the consciousness to the ratio? How does it relate to feeling? So from then on, which is 35 years ago or so, a deep interest in consciousness emerged.
And going back to that specific situation, of course, it's 35 years ago, so you might not remember, but were you not skeptical in the beginning, or were you weren't you surprised? Or because when you go through such a thing, what's your first response?
Well, I think that is an extremely important question, because I realize nobody until so far has asked me this question in this context. I can go back and say, I trusted completely that information because I could check it. And I shared the information, my knowing, I shared with the healer. So I told him within 15 minutes, the collarbone, and we could check our watches, and it happened. And since that happened, I, of course, have Googled, I've read books, and this happens all over the planet. And we know that too. Aunt Annie is gonna call me, if I want to call Aunt Annie, and Aunt Annie calls me, you know. We know that from daily life. But here's the point. We learn to trust everything that our brain, our mind produces, the rational faculty. So we, the humans, express ourselves in words and numbers. And in that way, through words and numbers, we communicate, and the educational systems are mostly based on that exchange. So it is that we also learn to trust the rational mind, and because of its ability to communicate with others as well. But a quality of the rational mind we don't see so often. The rational mind expresses everything that already happened. It's when we talk in words, it's about something that has happened or is going to happen, but is never the moment. So apart from that rational faculty, and that's what I found, based on the experience I just described, is there's the feeling faculty. The feeling faculty is the faculty that has the power of intuition. That's where you just are informed. Einstein knew it. When I go out of the thinking, I allow myself to be thought, I allow myself to be informed, then information comes to me that I cannot explain how it comes, but I trust that. And this event that I described in Verbier, Switzerland, taught me, because I was a very rational man. Of course I had feelings, I had emotions, all those things. But we are trained to trust our brain and the products of our brain. But that happening helped me to go on a trip in myself to learn to trust my feelings. And what are feelings? Feelings for me, is the information that comes in like a guitar that is played. When you play the string, it produces through resonance a sound on the, on the body of the guitar. And that guitar has no opinion. It just transfers to our ears and our consciousness, hopefully a beautiful tone. But that is sheer feeling. But there's also emotion. Emotion is a kind of block on that string through which the guitar does not play harmoniously. And that is what I saw, my lesson in life, to discern what is real feeling, what is pure information that comes from somewhere beyond, and what is distraction, always a form of fear, where I am attracted and have no open consciousness anymore, because I am bound to the emotion. And that blocks me, or blocked by the emotion, and so that I cannot purely feel.
Yeah.
To wrap it up, information, consciousness, so my consciousness can be informed through the rational, the mental faculty, and the feeling faculty. We are trained to trust our rational capacity, and we keep on training that, and we are not trained to trust our feeling capacity. And I think for teachers, you all will know, every moment we have to deal with both, and we are only working on one side.
Yeah, no, I think you're very right. I think that's that's spot on, that we need to be able to trust our feelings more. And I've heard you say a couple of times intuition. Yeah, because I think that's close to that, whereby your gut feeling tells you something, and why do we not go with that? Why do we rationalize?
Yes.
Do you think, I'm just doing a comparison because, again, we're describing a scope of 35 years ago, 40 years ago. Also in education, you see many more initiatives focused on at least creating some mind space for young students. I'm thinking of the David Lynch Foundation, who's very active in allowing young children to meditate. I'm thinking about a variety of apps, one called Headspace, that basically gives people time to take some time off, not to let rational function. I'm thinking about yoga, meditation, also lots of those things. Do you think we're improving as humanity?
Oh, definitely.
Fair compared to 40 years ago?
Yeah, we are making huge steps. I'm so happy that it's more and more recognized and taken seriously that information doesn't run only through the ratio. So I'm very optimistic here.
Yeah. What do you think would be next then? So if we are because yes, I think there's definitely acknowledgement, and I think everyone would underline, allow more space for yourself, allow yourself more to feel, go with what you feel. I don't think you could say go only with what you feel. I think no one would feel comfortable saying let go of ratio completely, but I do think there is something to be said for cultivating what you feel. Down the line, what is that going to look like, do you think? Are we going to feel more? Or
I've come to see that the ratio is there to serve the heart and not the other way around, which means that the heart, the softness of the heart, listens in its wisdom to all kinds of comparisons. You already said it in the beginning. How can we compare with care? Which means, how can we make efficient decisions? Because we come from the understanding in the business administration, in economy, that we have to compete. Competition means exclusion. So in an all-inclusive system on a round planet where everything dynamically coexists, we try to plant in the brain of people that there's scarcity, that there's not enough. And when you make people afraid, they start to hoard. They start to pull stuff towards them instead of the awareness of the heart, where it says, when I have too much, it's logic in an inclusive system that I start to talk with other people. How can we give people that have not enough, that animals or ecosystems that are loaded, that we help to relax it and nurture it in whatever way, instead of stress it. That's the bottom line of the story. Mm-hmm. So why do we come from this fearful scarcity thinking? That's because we come from a materialistic worldview, which means that the materialist, and most of the people are materialist in their approach, even scientifically. They say matter exists, which means that there is no infinity. So take everything that you can get because everything is matter. That school also says the brain produces consciousness. Mm-hmm. I come from another situation based on the school of idealism or non-dualism. Mm-hmm. And basically that school says consciousness produces matter. And of course the quality of matter is that it can be identified as dense or thin or anything in between, but consciousness doesn't have a location, it doesn't have a time. Mm-hmm. It is, you cannot grab it. It's like the infinite. I hope this is not too deep in too short a time, dear Aldo.
Don't worry. Don't worry if it is, right? I think it's something you have had a long time to kind of build up on. It is a vision and a philosophy which I think is beautiful and should be shared. Naturally, for the people who heard this for the first time, we will make sure that lots of other material is available.
And we have it as our goal to help and shift the scientific view related to consciousness, because in essence, consciousness for me equals love.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for sharing that, Fred. I want to go back to, you helping. So deciding again, going to work with the Red Cross, and from there on, so many, many, many more organizations. But I liked what you said about when you were working with the Red Cross and you basically saw, like, I'm not going to be able to help if I am restless. And if I am unhappy, then I'm going to do more damage than good, basically.
Yes.
Now, this is, of course, your own personal experience. I was wondering whether in your assessment to help other organizations, and you've helped so many throughout the years, whether you bring in elements of that specific comparison as well into your decision on whether or not you're going to help projects or organizations. So basically your entire experience about oneness, about what you said, allowing feelings and whatever more, is that something you have managed to translate in your approach when it comes to the Fred Foundation and all the good work that it does?
Yes. Yeah, of course we try. If we look at project where people, apart from the project that we do ourselves, and we do ourselves many projects, we also support projects from third parties. We, of course, look at the dedication, at the skills of the people, their heart, and their, the possibility of them to have the capacity to follow through. And, of course, that is sometimes difficult when you go into the Gambia or in Kenya, because you do not know the people often themselves, but often through people that bridge Kenya and our organization. And we do our best at least to find the people with the highest commitment from the heart. But that's apart from that we also support if we have huge problems related to wars or earthquakes, then we also help, but we cannot fine-tune it in a way that I just described. We just have to trust an organization that goes into emergency situations, and then we help as well.
But in your assessment, you also go with what your intuition tells you, right? So what you feel and what you think the founder feels, or the initiator or whoever is carrying the project feels.
Yeah, and don't forget, I'm now 75, and we have a team and the CEO that leads the foundation, not only Fred Foundation, but we have Forest Peace Foundation, we have Cry of the Heart Foundation, we have Essentia, we have Flow Fund. So there are quite some foundations that need to be run. And I'm more sitting next to the driver there, and sometimes I'm not even in the car, so to say, metaphorically. Yeah. So, and it's a wonderful young team of people ranging from 24 to 45. So next generation, so to say.
Nice. So that's great that you passed it on so successfully, and great that all these organizations are thriving and working and helping. That's, of course, such an achievement.
And we can make mistakes, and
sure.
We don't judge mistakes. No, we are very good at making mistakes and being very forgiving too.
Okay, no, that's also important, of course, yes, because everyone makes mistakes. It's only human. Talking about you being 75, and it brings basically to what you described as your third challenge. You said as your third challenge is, my current challenge is how to share my philosophy with as many people as possible in a short amount of time. This is not teaching, and I'm not asking anything in return. I'm 75. And how do I connect with diverse audiences? One part of the philosophy regards the value of feeling as opposed to thinking, which we're not taught in traditional education. So we spoke about, the fact that our ratio sometimes blocks how we feel and for us to really internalize what we feel. What specifically of your philosophy would you like to get across? So what is it about what you're hearing that you would like to, for people to work with more or to basically understand better and also apply?
One thing I mentioned already, our mental faculty is the servant of our hearts. It's more about sharing than competing. Mm-hmm. I sometimes make the analogy that tennis was developed towards the other person so that he can stretch and play that ball back. And then so that you have a continuum, a creative thing where you play together, not against one another, but with one another. The male principle, the female principle, thinking and feeling. Mm. And what they have made of that is that they play towards another, and the person is awarded that breaks that cycle of fun. And basically, that's what we do in sports, in business life, and everywhere in wars. We want to defeat people, have a winner and a loser, but on a round planet where we are together, not only as humans, because we are one of the millions and millions of expressions of life, the only one that expresses themselves in words and communicates through words. But there are elephants, there are trees, there are ants, everything that is part of metabolism or not metabolism, that coexists together and also communicates. And the awareness that we are in all of it together brings us to the position that we share, that we can share instead of exclude.
Yes, and sorry, this makes me automatically think about, what's going on now with the pandemic. We heard it often. It's like we're all in it together.
We're all in it together.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And I think it's a lesson that we need to face. What does it tell us? It is beautiful here in the Netherlands to see that there are no planes. I've never heard so many birds sing. There are quiet streets. People are more and more patient with one another. They're more friendly. Yeah, it teaches us something beautiful too. Of course, it has a harsh side as well. More people die. But when we compare it with the big things like measles, diarrhea, malaria, and others, still, by far, it doesn't have that many victims per year compared to the ones that I just mentioned. I mean, Corona.
Mm-hmm. So the pandemic has also had some traits for us to kind of reassess and for us to think well, what are we actually doing? And for that matter, because certain things stopped, we're seeing kind of, the initial beauty of things around us, maybe a bit stronger than,
But also in the teaching field, here in the Netherlands for teachers, here you see also the affluent people that are educated. They are able to guide their children through the last, 8 to 10 weeks to give them schooling at home. And those that are less privileged and has less privileged parents, the gap becomes bigger in the level of being educated because these children don't have parents that have the skills nor often the motivation because they don't know how to do that to assist them. So here's head on, we have a great opportunity, and we do with the foundation, we help also to close the gap here by helping to fund students that go to those children that are less privileged, So there's always something to do.
No, that's great, and that's wonderful. And again, testimony to the great work that the Fred Foundation is doing. I've been meaning to ask, is there, and I know there are hundreds, but is there one project in particular that if you now look back upon 40 years and when you talk about this state of oneness, is there one that stood out for you? Is there one you would like to mention, like top of mind?
Well, basically, if that's okay, 3, very briefly, and that's...
Oh, sure. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, personally, I am very much interested in the start of the Foundation Essentia, which I already mentioned with Dr. Bernardo Kastrup. 2, we started a year ago the Foundation Forest Peace, with which foundation we buy forests and agricultural land from poor farmers to transform that into nature and to take that away out of human circulation to help ecosystems to restore. In the margin, we do that so we create also some education systems for people to, especially people with certain handicaps, to experience nature so that it can help them to de-stress. That is
This is
the
in the
second
Netherlands?
one. We just bought 8,000 acres.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then the last thing I love to mention, the program which we started 3 years ago, Food for Smiles, together with the Free University of Amsterdam, where in part of Amsterdam with 120,000 people out of 80 nationalities, we started a 10-year program around the first 1,000 days of life to help and understand people, how they behave, how they feed and nurture themselves, how they move, and to help them to get to a more functional pattern of being nurtured and more movement. So that's a long-term program. So that was much inspired from my side. If you want transformation, don't be stressed. Don't be in a hurry. Allow yourself to be with the people and listen to them. Instead of, I want you to tell something. No, I want first to understand with you and have equal ground so that we then can have a mutual exchange that leads to better behavior patterns.
All 3 very wonderful initiatives. And again, you have so many to talk about. So very happy that you highlighted 3 of them that we should all definitely check out. And we will make sure that links to the respective projects will be included with this podcast so people can have a look at it. Fred, we're almost at the end of this specific interview, and I would really like to thank you for taking the time. We always close off with 2 questions that I ask every specific guest. And the first question is about any books that you would like to recommend to our audience.
Yeah, well, I would recommend Stealing Fire from, amongst others, Jamie Wheel. And then one of the last books of Deepak Chopra and Rudy Tanzi. I don't know the title at this moment. I don't remember. And the third one is The Course in Miracles. Is an amazing book, but that really means studying.
Okay. So Stealing Fire, The Course in Miracles, and then basically the last book of Deepak Chopra and Rudy Tanzi. And,
right.
And we know that, of course, you know Deepak Chopra, and I think he's a great author, an inspiration, a real guru. So basically, a lot of books of Deepak are, of course, recommendable, I'd say. So, well.
And last but not least, my own book, Beyond Us.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. You can order that because it's going to be released in January.
Definitely. We will also make sure you're ahead of me, Fred. I wanted to do the promotional part for you.
Okay, thanks.
In talking about those things, but definitely Beyond Us, Fred's book, also related to the documentary, I assume, that will be launched in January. So as a follow-on, the documentary that was launched in May. The last question, Fred, is, you know now a little bit about the outline of the podcast, our intention, what it is that we're trying to do. And we always ask all our guests if they could think of a possible next guest that we could invite to speak to. So is there anyone top of mind that you could say, well, that would be a great person for your podcast that could, talk about life skills, that could talk to an audience of educators or that could talk about specific problems that are of interest to you?
Oh, yeah, I have one. It's Dr. Gita Vaid, V-A-I-D.
Mm-hmm.
She is a psychiatrist and from Indian descent.
Mm-hmm.
And she is one of the most profound people that I know in understanding, standing under and feeling. She is superbly sensitive and very warm-hearted and superbly bright. And of course, Bernardo Kastrup, he has tens of thousands of followers, mostly in the scientific community.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful recommendations. Thank you so much. And we'd love to have them in due time. And thank you so much for thinking of them and thinking along. And we do apologize because I put you on the spot there with both questions. I realized
it's okay.
It would have been good to have a little bit of time to prepare. So Dr. Gita Vaid and Bernardo Castro.
Yeah, also double doctor.
Double doctor, yeah, I can imagine. I would like to thank you so much because, again, you have a very big heart and this world is a better place with you in it and helping so many people and continuing to help. You're not anymore always in the driver's seat or in the car, but it is through you that so many people were inspired to do more and operationally mobilized to do more. And full disclosure, I am one of those people, right? Because I worked alongside you and your foundation 10 years ago. Yeah, so I know from first experience what it is like to work with you and what an inspiring person you are. For those of you who want to find out more about Fred, we will include all links, but the link for his documentary is beyondmedocumentary.org. And you can find your way through looking to the documentary directly. It will be streamed from the website directly. It's a 50-minute documentary that I could highly recommend in understanding this great humanitarian, this great person better. Fred, once again, thank you very much. Miles of smiles is always how you end every conversation.
Yeah.
So I want to wish you miles of smiles and again a big thanks for doing this. Fred Matson.
Great, and I thank you so much, Aldo, and thank you all much, listeners. And like I said in the beginning, you have one of the most important jobs and responsibilities in the world. And you have the courage to work with young people for what I would say always a very modest salary. So you're my heroes. Miles of smiles to you as well.
Thanks, Fred.
Have a great day.
If you liked this episode of the Teach Pitch podcast, then it would mean the absolute world if you could share it with your friends and or give it a short review on your preferred podcast platform. The more you share your ideas about these interviews, the more people will find out about them. So do let us know what you think. We'd be very, very grateful.
Special thanks to Kevin MacLeod for our beautiful theme music, Le Grand Chase. This podcast was produced and edited by Natalie Piles. Project coordination by Inva Cheney.